And hello, everyone. We are live now for Show and Share. It is Tuesday night, July 18th, and we're here for another night of sharing and talking with each other, socializing, finding out what each other's doing, and maybe checking out the space for those of you who are new. I'd like to start off with a project by Rhubarb, and it's a failed 3D print. And yes, we do show our failures as well as our successes here, because we can all learn from them.
So I got this board game. It's called New York Slice, and it's really neat design. It's got a box that looks like a pizza box, and the rule set looks like a menu, and the scorecard looks like a check that you would get, and it's really great. With one slight problem: the pieces are just kind of thrown in there. There's no rhyme or reason for it. So I didn't like that, so I decided to do a 3D print that holds all the pieces into a pizza shape, like you would expect. So I designed it up in FreeCAD and printed it on my resin printer. And the resin that I was using is expired by over a year. And so every print that I was doing was kind of well, this one's going to fail. I'll just print and see if it works or not. And finally, it did, in fact, fail.
Did you know it was expired at the beginning?
Yes, I knew it was expired, but might as well use it if it's there. So this is one of the corner pieces, and it might be a little bit hard to see, but down here, you can see it's kind of raised up for some reason. I have no clue why. I thought it was interesting. And on this other corner piece, you can see it's even more pronounced. And again, don't know why I did this, but that's how it ended up being. And here you can see some of the layers got separated. And thought this guy came out correct, but then missed that whole corner over there. And this one had a similar kind of spring-like with this game broke off, but yeah, I thought it was interesting and thought I'd share.
Was it the same file that produced different results?
So with the resin printer, you could put a bunch of different pieces on and print them all at the same time. So this was same print.
Due to resin printers, what defect causes the layer separation like you showed on the model?
So I'm fairly certain the chemistry that goes on within the resin after it expires, it just doesn't adhere to the different layers as well. And it probably got stuck too much to the bottom of the resin vat and kind of peeled itself apart.
Did you repeat it with resin that was not expired?
I plan to. I haven't had the chance yet. All right. Thank you very much.
I think I would try expired resin. I don't know about expired food, but expired resin, yeah, why not? Give it a try. It would be really interesting after you do print it with good resin to see if you got any type of the same results. I'd like to hear that later. Next up, we have Joe with some shawl pins.
Good evening. A few years ago, I had made for Christmas gifts for my sister-in-law and niece. Did some hammered copper shawl pins, and then she's been after me to make some more since then. So I've got back into working on those, and my wife's been making these little knitted little swatches to display them on. Here is one that I just finished up yesterday. And let's see, let's zoom out because I'm going to show a couple other discs. I have so many different types of woods that, I figured, I'll turn several different things. And this one and this one are quarter sawn sycamore. This one is a wood called granadillo. And I'm trying to remember this one. I'm thinking it was teak. But I can turn those out on the lathe. On this one, I used the little carbide cutters, lathe tools. So I've got one that's got a round disc. I got one that's got a square disc. Got one that's got a diamond-shaped disc. And so after I turn these, sand them down, I'll get a coat of lacquer on them. On this one, then I came back with the diamond bit and cut a groove. And then I took some copper wire and chucked it up on the drill and clamped the other end down and spun it so you get the twist, and then started pressing, I cut the groove just to the width, a little tight for it. So I've got a mallet that has a plastic tip, so I just started tapping it in and then using the water-thin CA glue to lock it in. And on the little swatches and stuff my wife's been knitting, I did one the other day and I did not get a picture of it. I wish I had. It was out of a piece of palm wood, and it was turned down the grain. And a number of years ago, I turned a goblet out of some palm, and my oldest son, he's always comes back with smart remarks and stuff. And I brought a goblet in and was showing him. Says, "What are you doing? Turning a cup of a carpenter?" If you remember the Indiana Jones thing. But anyway, I had the cutoff from the base of that, and I made it into a shawl pin. And I don't know if any of you ever worked with palm. It's not really a wood. It's a grass. It's a monocot plant. And if you look at it, you see the individual fibers coming up. And you got light colored and you get dark colored. It turns super easy. But anyway, I showed this one to a friend of mine. She said, "How much?" And she pulled out the money and said, "Here." So that's sold real quick. But yeah, we're getting back, since we retired, we're getting back into doing some craft shows and stuff. And she quilts, and one of the things her quilting group really likes, and I've made a bunch of them for her quilting group friends, and I've shown these before, the clappers. This is one I just finished up, and still need to sand it because I got to put a clear coat of lacquer on it, and I just need to come back and smooth it down. But I've got, with the laser engraver, I can put different things on the front of it. So, but this one here, let me zoom in a little bit. A friend of hers sent her this verse and wanted to know if I could put that on the front of a clapper. And these are made out of maple. They're 1 3/4 inches thick, 3 inches wide, and about 9.5 inches long. I've made some longer, I've made some shorter. But these things, she took some to her quilting retreat last year and sold every one she had there. So anyway, one other thing, I was going through some files at home. My dad worked out at Oak Ridge for 40 plus years, and if it was radioactive, he worked with it. Well, this was a picture that I found. The first controlled nuclear reaction was built, the reactor was built under a football stadium in Chicago, under Stagg Field. And on the 50th anniversary of that, my dad's holding a canister that has uranium that came from that reactor, and also has some in a plastic bag. Yeah, I've gone through, I've found a whole lot of pictures going through stuff at my parents' house since they passed away. And this one here was interesting. And I also found a group of about a dozen guys sitting on top of an atomic bomb on a trailer in some of the stuff that he had. And he's taken me in areas that the public doesn't usually get to see. And he says, watch this, turn off the lights and watch everything glow. So, but if he worked with everything, if it was radioactive, he worked with it. He did, on the Apollo missions, he had a lot of projects that he did. Thank you.
I saw the pen close up beforehand, and I'll have to say that the overhead didn't do it justice. Would you pass that?
Yeah.
Would you be able to pass that around? And the copper twist that he put in it is really, really nice.
You can barely even, I can't even tell sometimes looking
Yeah.
at where the seam came together at.
Ah, okay.
So,
Yeah, start that passing around. That'd be great. That's some really fine tooling work. Gorgeous.
I've got so many woods, I cut into making Native American blues for years ago, so I like to use a lot of different style woods. So I've got quite a collection.
Well, next up, we have someone who had kind of a different technique. He burned his wood. Russell, was that from a light?
Although I've done that before. Yeah. I have been known to set things on fire. For those of you that may be new or aren't familiar, I build lamps, and sometimes they're great successes, and sometimes they catch on fire. So who would know? So my latest, because I like playing with electricity and things that light up, I got a Lichtenberg burner, and Tony got the Lichtenberg bug, and this was actually from Tony's. Let me zoom out a little bit where it'll. So that was just a little test thing we did on this wood, trying to make it go in a certain area. This one turned out really nice. And that was just a test, just on a piece of scrap wood. Actually, we kind of informally, we don't do that in the shop because, and this is where I do my Wheel of Fortune impression, this is done with 10,000 volts. So that's the reason we don't like to do that. There have actually been, I looked on the Facebook group that people that do Lichtenberg burning, and there have been roughly 40 people who have died doing this because of the voltage. So that's why we discourage doing it in the shop. But I don't know, I'm old enough to live dangerously, right? So. So anyway, that's what I do. Is there any questions?
Are you using a neon sign transformer?
This one actually is a neon sign transformer. It's actually a commercial. It's one that is purchased. It's not one that was built from scratch. I understand that the guys that build them from scratch with neon sign transformers or parts from a microwave, those are the ones that are more likely to be injured. So that's why I went with a commercial model. Tony did also, but you have to really pay attention to the safety protocol.
What's the theory behind this? You put a probe on each side of the wood?
Right. You put a probe, well, you wash it with soda water, so you've got a electrolyte. Is that right? Yeah. And put a probe on each end, activate it, and it commences to burning, trying to come together to make a complete circuit. And in the process, it's burning the wood as it goes along.
The transformers from microwave, yeah, those are only about 5,000 or 6,000 volts, but they're like 2.5 amps. So
Yeah,
yeah,
they'll get you.
definitely don't want to get bit by
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I used to work with
Right.
Knox Makers like that.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a friend who makes Native American foods, and he started doing this. I
Mhm.
tell him how to do it. He'll wire brush out where it burns,
Right.
and then mix in turquoise powder with a glow-in-the-dark powder.
Yeah.
And lots of resin, and put that in there and sand it.
Mm-hmm.
You end up looking like you're gonna have lightning bolts.
Right.
And the food glows in the dark.
Yeah. It's like these spots, if you take a wire brush or some sort of a nylon brush, brush it out to get the excess carbon out, then you can you pour resin in it, whatever. I've seen guys that do tables and whatnot, river top tables with this top stuff. It's very cool, very neat. But there again, it's a safety. You got to be super careful with doing that, and that's why we don't encourage doing it in the shop. But still wanted to show what we're doing. Yeah, Neil.
So would this authorization class be in electronics or the woodworking?
Let's see. I think it would probably be. Let's see. Where's the most fire? Part of safety, or let's see. We have a lot of fire in the blacksmith shop. Maybe.
The equipment would be electronics, and then utilizing it would be.
Yeah, which is something that we encourage, is that for people to make something that includes all of the different zones, so, we got some wood here, got some electronics there, got some fire from blacksmith, and yeah, Neil.
Suggest one more new zone, the Fort Sanders Hospital zone.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, the first aid zone. It may be too late. Do we have one of those bzz things? Defibrillator. Do we have one of those?
We'll just use your neon signs.
Okay. There we go. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Russell. That was great. Keeping with the fire and burned wood theme, we're going to look at Mason with a bar fire guitar. Are you going to play us a song?
Don't have an amp, unfortunately.
Somebody here can make you one probably.
Sounds quite fun. So, okay, the camera's on this side?
Yes.
Okay. I have a weird little trinket. So this guitar, do what? This way. Okay. So, this guitar is a funky little instrument. This has been a work in progress for a while. This guitar was caught in a bar fire in 1980 or so. And it has a little bit of a story behind it. The guy who owned the bar and the guitar originally set his own bar on fire for insurance fraud money. Got found out for that, was arrested, spent a little while in prison. The guy who that I ended up getting this from was an old friend of his that ended up taking a lot of the stuff out of the bar, and that, this just sort of sat there until I went up to Wisconsin and found it. The guy who he ended up getting out of prison, he was diagnosed with terminal cancer after he got out of prison, and decided that he wanted to have a little bit more fun. And so he went down to Florida, got an RV, started running over a bunch of trash cans in a park, was arrested, got out of jail, did it again, and then they met up, and he basically just told the guy I got this guitar from that he could have all of his stuff, including this guy. And so when I got this, I have pictures of this. I'll move over here real quick. When I got this guitar, it was in rough condition. Where is the bottom right? This button? Awesome. So it was in seriously bad condition. As you can probably see here, most of the electronics were gone. These two pickups are not original. The original pickups are ash. The neck burned to an actual cinder. If I can go through here, this was the back of it. It has some of the original finish over here, but for the most part, it's not looking too happy. I did have a lot of the original hardware that wasn't able to burn. This is not really doing it justice how oxidized this is. It is pretty blue. I guess what would I know? I'm colorblind. And then the neck, that is all that remained of the neck. So of course, probably gonna have to make a new neck for that. And the end result of that, I stabilized all of the wood using epoxy, or rather I stabilized all the ash using wood stabilizer first. Then I silver leafed all of the areas where it had burned so far into the guitar that it was no longer structural. Filled the entire thing and rebuilt most of the guitar's horns and some of the body using clear epoxy, clear pick guard, and the pickups in it are also a little bit funky. These two pickups here are period pickups. They are from the exact era that this guitar was made. This one was a 1970 Gibson pickup, I believe. And that thing, it sounds immaculate. Anyways, that's pretty much everything I have, but everything turned out very nice, and it's playable again. Yes.
Sometimes you need to bring up something and let us hear how it sounds. And so what was the original kind of guitar that was?
It was a Stratocaster. I believe it was a Fender. I'm not entirely confident because the serial number burnt off. If I knew, I would have a much better idea of a better way to restore the guitar to the original setup and hardware that it had. And so I kind of just went based off of the remnants, I guess you'd call it.
So what made you think this was worth doing?
Oh, it wasn't.
Okay.
This took probably 9 months that could have been spent doing 3 other guitars. There's no way this would have been worth it monetarily. I just found it super cool.
It is super cool. I agree with you. It is super cool.
And I will definitely have to bring a pickup or an amp in here
Yeah.
at some point, because this thing, it packs a punch.
That's awesome.
And it's very exciting that this thing's actually playable again.
And so you play, I
Yeah.
know you build guitars, so you play, what type of music do you?
I was originally trained on like classical rock, and then I moved into just straight classical guitar, which is kind of a weird departure. And then now I just kind of play everything.
Yeah,
That's sort of how it goes.
that's awesome.
I just cut my nails off, so I can't play a whole lot of classical stuff right now. But yeah.
Awesome.
That's truly amazing that you can take something that most people would have just taken to the garbage and turned it into music. Right, yeah. Is there anyone who didn't get a chance to sign up that would like to? Yes, sir.
That's going to live there for now. Hi, my name is Walter. I like making stuff out of plastic bags. They are a pain in the butt to recycle conventionally, industrially, but doing it at home is super duper easy. Most of them are made of HDPE or LDPE, which you can safely work with at home with some very basic tools with which you can make something like this. I'll put it under, and that's way too zoomed in. And in case you can't tell, that's a flip-flop. And it fits. It's not the most comfortable thing in the world, but I made this today when I was at work in between watching children with a iron and a heat gun. And those are tools that most everyone has, and it's really easy to work with. Other ways that you can work with this material are with a panini press. You can get something a lot more akin to wood if you're willing to take the work, shove it into a mold, clamp down on it. This side has a bit of texture because I even tried sanding it a little bit. I'm not crazy about doing that because it releases a lot of microplastics, which isn't the best. But you can get some nice wood analogs out of the plastic like this, and I'm gonna get back to that. But all of these processes used electricity. And part of the appeal behind recycling the bags is be able to do it sustainably in a green way. And so last summer, this has been going on for a minute, oh my goodness gracious, did it run away? I don't have the part I was gonna show you. I was able to take essentially one of those pizza box ovens and soup that up with some aluminum foil inside and get it to convincingly make something about this thick. And so I was happy with that. I wanted to move on a little bit more. And this past year, I was TAing for the senior design course at UT. And I jumped on the opportunity to say, hey, I've got a bunch of EE and CS students that are going to be graduating, and they're going to have a budget of $500. I want to see what they can do if they take their big brains and this relatively big budget and approach this project. And I told them that I wanted it to be green, so I wanted it to be solar powered. I was thinking they would use the power of the sun, like I had been doing to heat it. They opted for a solar panel. That's cool. I don't have the solar panel with me because it's big and it's heavy, and I didn't want to bring it around. But what they ended up coming up with was, this isn't going to fit too well there, so I'll stand over here. So the parts that are missing are the solar oven and then the 12-volt lead acid battery. But what they came up with is a travel oven that is charged with a solar panel controller, and then the electronics inside here are a node MCU that hosts a local access point and a thermocouple, and then there's a little screen in there so you can see what the temperature is. You're able to access the access point with your phone. You're able to say, hey, turn on, and the way that it regulates the temperature is it's always checking out what the temperature is with the thermocouple, which threads into a solid aluminum mold, and then there's some weight put down on it so that it makes nice little bricks, smaller than this one. I'm saving that for last. So that is then controlled with a relay, so if it gets too high, it cuts the relay, turns off the toaster oven, and it's going to oscillate back and forth to be at the target temperature for the plastic. You can theoretically work with different types of plastic because you're able to set it. They didn't get it to the point where you can sort of set it, say, okay, I'm making this, and did enough testing to know for this many grams of plastic, it needs to go in for this temperature with this weight. But it's an open source project. That was the second thing I told them. Everything for this project I needed well documented and open source. So all of the nice thing is, I know the instructions work because when they gave me this, it wasn't necessarily working, so I had to put it back together. And I was the sponsor of the project, but I wasn't in charge of making the project. But I was able to put it back together using their instructions, so I know the instructions are nice. It's relatively modular. You don't need to do the solar panel. You don't need to use this specific toaster oven. The code is on GitHub, so you can just pull that, throw it on a node MCU, hook the relay up with a regular toaster oven. I think I saw one on the hack rack. Hook that up, and it'll do the same thing. And the results, I was pretty happy with. They made a little birdhouse, and these bricks, they're not perfectly uniform, but a lot better than this was. I've only been able to make one nice brick like this. They were able to spit out a whole bunch more, hot glued it together. I don't think I'm gonna actually put it up because I think the birds might eat the hot glue, but as a proof of concept, it's a pretty cool device that you can use to make things at home with plastic, but you don't need to. All you need is a ironing board and heat gun. that's what I got. Yeah.
How many bags can you make a brick?
That is a great question. I believe each of these bricks is roughly 4 grocery bags. I don't have the weights off the top of my head, but you'd be surprised how condensed those bags get to be. And I'll pass these around, and if anyone wants that, like I said, all the documentation for making this is available. If you want that, find me afterwards, and I'll get it to you. Yeah?
What's the target temperature for grocery bags?
Yes, so I've got that written down on a piece of paper because I knew someone was going to ask that. So the HDPE, you want to have it between 120 and 140 degrees Celsius. If you get it above 180, that's when it burns. When it burns, it releases fumes that are not good for you to inhale. As long as you have it in that 120 to 140 range, you can go up to 150 if you want to go a little bit faster. It is melting, not burning, and you're safe. You still want to do it in a relatively ventilated area, but it is not that hot. You can do it with a ironing board. Yeah.
So can you convert that to the fabric setting that would be on your iron? The 120
Oh, yeah. I had it on high, just all the way on high. The highest the iron went. It probably works with less than high, but I'm impatient and I wanted it to go fast. And that's probably why my fingers are a little bit burnt, but it's pretty easy to do. Yeah.
I've been looking at how to do that with 5 plastic bags to make a shopping bag, right? And it's just using a Teflon mat.
Yes.
So your plastic doesn't meet your iron.
Yes, what I forgot that. I didn't use a Teflon mat. You can, you should. I used wax paper, and that worked well as well because it did get on the iron a little bit, and then I had to like roll it off and burn my fingers a little bit. Yeah, it'll stick to the iron. It won't stick to the wax paper or the Teflon mat. The tricky thing with that, because I work at a camp. I was teaching the kids how to make plastic shoes. And there's a fine line between it's too thick for them to cut and it's not solid enough, because if you just do one bag, you get holes all over it. Too many bags, they can't cut through it. And so finding that line was difficult. Yeah?
Have you tried melting to pour in a mold as opposed to compressing?
So I would like to. The next step that I'd like to do is see about doing injection molding with it, which is going to require a different setup here. I think getting it, like, you won't be able to cast it like you would cast bronze or something. I think it's just too viscous when it's in that ooey gooey state. And so you sort of need the pressure to put it somewhere. I would like to do more putting it into molds, though. And I think injection molding is the way to do that. Yeah.
I've seen some people, especially with HDPE, they will actually do it in an inert atmosphere, like argon or nitrogen.
Oh.
And that will allow them to actually get it past the burning, the ignition point of the HDPE, and it will flow a little bit easier. I'm not sure how viscous it is, but it does get less viscous.
Interesting. That would be cool. I don't think I have the apparatus to do that, though. That'll be something maybe to work towards. But for now, this works pretty well as a quick and dirty way to do it. Anything else? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. That was a really great project. Anybody else? Okay, so we're going to go to the more boring part of the show. Yeah. Announcements. So I didn't look at all of the announcements, but what I did do is I called it up on my phone, which all of you should have a link to knoxmakers.org events. And on that, you can scroll through all the events. Of course, we're in the hacker meeting right now. We've got new members onboarding coming up. We've got, it looks like a metal turning lathe class, but oh no, it's sold out. The board meeting. I have some more embroidery auth classes posted, so you can check those out. And a woodworking class, it's not sold out. So if you need to be authorized in the woodworking zone, now's the time to grab your ticket. So the last part I'd like to say is that we're all a volunteer organization. We depend on you to clean up after yourself after you've been working on your projects, and we like to help each other. So I'm going to give a call for help to maybe take out the trash. Thank you. And change the air filters. All right, thank you. And with that, go out and make stuff. Oh, one last thing. If you're new here and you would like a tour, see anybody with the red badge, we can definitely answer your questions and give you a tour. All right, that's it, promise.